professionals, company supervisors, but we also provide divorce coaching and case management, providing that guidance and direction that your divorcing employees so desperately need. Divorce is a huge disruptor, not only to the employee going through it, but to the company they work for. And our coaches have a unique perspective on divorce that sets us apart. They have a deep understanding of the legal, financial, and emotional aspects of divorce. And they can handle even the highest conflict cases with compassion and professionalism. And our coaches are trained to look at the entire picture, helping your employees make good decisions based upon their goals and expectations. So if you're an HR benefits manager or an HR benefits provider or consultant, please reach out and see if adding our suite of solutions is a good fit for your business. And as a reminder, we have SHRM credits for SHRM members, and we'll post a link to that at the end of this broadcast so that you will want to make sure and grab those. And today, we're going to be talking about what divorce coaching is and how it impacts your employees, how it helps them with our special guest today, my friend Catherine Blake. Kat Blake is a certified divorce coach. She's a divorce mediator. She's a guardian ad litem, and she's a licensed psychotherapist of 25 years plus. She began her career by focusing on children and families and worked in a variety of settings, including juvenile justice, mental health, education, and adoption facilities. As a family psychotherapist, she saw firsthand how negatively divorce can impact children. Many parents would bring their children in for anxiety symptoms, and I would hear later that the parents' divorce was on the horizon. So Kat pivoted to divorce coaching not long after her garden variety high conflict divorce in 2010, but after going through a 2-year custody battle with her ex-husband in 2015. During this time, Kat lost friends, the marital home that she worked so hard for, friends, and her health. Utter devastation, and her husband won 2 extra weeks of parenting time in the summer. It was after this that Kat trained and switched to divorce coaching. She's always been a social worker at heart and wanted to change the cruel process of divorce for her clients. She knows that when she helps parents navigate divorce with grace and realistic expectations, that she's helping the children of that marriage, not only for today, but for generations to come. Welcome, Kat. I'm so happy that you're with us.
Yes, thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to talk about this because what I want to do is share, how divorce coaching, what it is that we do, because a lot of people still don't understand that. But also, each of our divorce coaches at Divorce Right has an extra area of expertise. And you worked with children as a part of your therapy practice. So what can you tell us about children and their mental health as it intersects with their parents' divorce?
Absolutely. So I think I'm always thinking about the children in any case that I'm working with. And I always encourage my clients, because what I tell them and research proves, it's not divorce itself that is damaging to children. I think a lot of people start their divorce coaching process with me, and children are always one of their top concerns. And their first question is, should I put my child in therapy right away? And I say, let's hold off a little bit and let's see what happens. Divorce is definitely a transition period for the whole family, for everybody. Now there's co-parenting happening, there's visitation happening. But research shows that when it's done well, when there's very little conflict, that a year post-divorce, the children are actually doing better in the mental health. So you have to figure, children are typically the symptom of the larger issues happening in the family system. And like you had stated, many people would bring their child in for anxiety coaching, because that's what I was doing at the time. And then 3 or 4 sessions in, the parents would say, oh, by the way, there's a lot of conflict. Oh, and by the way, we're thinking about divorce. So the child, even subconsciously without awareness, was the symptom of what was going on in the conflict between the parents. So knowing that, what does damage children or cause trauma for them is when there's ongoing conflict between the parents post-divorce.
And that's what, and one of the things that you talked about was like helping them have, because that's what we do, right?
Yeah.
We help them have a better divorce experience, because when they're all up here in their heads and they're like fighting at each other, there's the anxiety that they're in, not knowing what's going to happen to them, right?
Now, I tell people when you're going through divorce, there's brain fog because people will often say to me, number one, I'm having a hard time focusing at my job. I'm terrified I'm going to lose my job. And these are
Oh
high
yeah.
successful employees and people and bosses. And I forgot things. I forgot to pay my bills. I haven't talked to my and I think that's a typical response to even a low conflict divorce because everything in your life is thrown up in the air and is up for negotiation. And that is terrifying.
It's when you don't know what's coming at you,
Right.
it's really hard to make decisions, right?
Right.
Because you still don't know. So
Right.
that's why having us on your team,
Mm-hmm.
what I see, like instantly, just having somebody listen and understand you, right, and understand what you're going through.
Mm-hmm.
That in itself can just lower the temperature in the room. But when
Yeah.
they start to understand, when we build that plan with them for their future, they'll understand what's coming at them. So there's no head spinning, right? It's
Exactly.
right. And if we can, what I love about what you said was if we can keep them, from that high conflict, taking each other out and that whole litigation, you better lawyer up, right? It
Right.
just causes problems with children at home. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I love. So you were a therapist, you were working with children, now you're a divorce coach. Tell us the difference between those two. What's the difference between being a therapist and a coach?
It's funny because I do say to people when they work with me that they're getting therapy / coaching because I am providing both to them. And I sort of have created the style where I can fluidly kind of go back and forth. The difference between general psychotherapy and coaching, and here's where I think is the big difference, is that general psychotherapy is really about meeting the client where they're at, and it's about ego support. So it's listening, it's reflecting. Therapy in general tends to be about how your past impacts who you are today. Coaching is about here's who you are today. We might dip in your past a little bit, but our goal is to help you move into the future that you want. So there's a little bit of a accountability piece that comes with coaching, and like I will listen to clients all day long, but if we're like at a fourth or fifth session and we're still complaining about the horrible ex, but there's no movement forward, we might talk about things like letting go of anger, choosing your mental health over being right, letting go of mindsets that are keeping you triggered, like fairness. People want their divorce to be fair, and
Right.
people want what's right. So let's unpack some of those mindsets and that are triggering you or holding you back from really moving forward into healing.
I love that. And and if we could, so let's go through like a typical session so that people can kind of understand
Mm-hmm.
what this is. So you're working with Betty
Yeah.
from, the ABC company. They found out she now has benefits of divorce right coaching. So how does that start with you? How do you begin that process?
So in the back of my mind as a coach, I definitely have milestones and goals and that's why I tell my clients that I love for them to meet as we're working together. Which is why, by the way, I actually do individual work and group work with all of my clients. So in the individual work, I might function more as a therapist by just checking in. Hey, what's going on? How was this week? What was difficult? What are a couple things that you want to take away from our one-on-one session? The group is very structured. In the group, it's mindset, boundaries, grief, co-parenting. So in the group, we're really specifically going through each step concretely with knowledge-based, tool-based skill sets that people are kind of graduating the group with. So that's
Interesting.
how I'm able to kind of be the therapist and the coach as well. But in the back of my mind, I want my clients to know things that I wish I knew in my own divorce because I was so reactive and emotionally driven and scared and hyper vigilant. And then, of course, some of my job is really plain education. Like a lot of people have questions like,
Yes.
what's a four-way meeting? Why do I have to do mediation? I didn't sign up for mediation. What is, I received this letter from my ex's attorney. Do I respond to it and how? How often should I be calling my attorney? What kind of attorney should I hire? So
Right.
there's an educational piece to it, because also the other thing that's in the back of my mind is I want to make sure that my client's saving as much money as possible as they get through the divorce process. I don't want them funding their high-end divorce attorney's vacation to, you know,
Right.
Aruba.
A new car for, baby
Right.
needs a new pair of shoes, right? I get it.
It's
Because it
getting
can
through the
be
whole process with grace, so that on the other, that's going to help you in your healing, so that you're not leaving the divorce process bitter, broken, resentful, and you're able to co-parent. That's the
right.
ultimate.
And co-parenting is the most important part. So let's go back. So one of the things that your employees going through is that not understanding. Excuse me. Excuse me. And not knowing what's coming at them is what's going. But what happens with co-parenting in what with your practice?
As far as co-parenting, how to, or
Yeah, like what do you obviously what's going to happen to their kids is totally, there's something called presenteeism, right? Which is one of the ways that that an employee loses their productivity. And that's because they're worried about everything. They're literally worried. And presenteeism is that, you're physically there at your desk, but you're just kind of off, thinking of other things. And in the case of divorce, you are thinking of everything but your job, because your children are at stake and things like that. And so co-parenting and having a relationship with your ex can kind of smooth, as long as they have a good relationship with their ex, their co-parenting issues that would come up at work will be minimized, right?
Right.
So the employee will be a better employee because they have these skills in place.
Right.
So what are some of those that you want to talk to us about?
I mean, I think one of the most important tools, and again, mindset with co-parenting, is the fact that at the end of the day, both parents, even in high conflict situations, typically want the same things for their children. They don't agree on how to get there. So they want their children to be successful and healthy and happy and not damaged by divorce. So some of the coaching that I work with, I'm usually working with one partner, but I do work with, I do co-parenting coaching too for people who are in high conflict post-divorce. But it's keeping their eyes on the, on the bigger picture, and realizing that a lot of this power play and struggle and, what time is bedtime, what are the right foods to eat, that they're not necessarily as powerful when it comes to the focus on the bigger picture as a co-parent might feel right in that moment. I don't know if that makes any sense, but Vicki, did I lose your?
I'm sorry, I was muted. I apologize.
I was like, wait, I can't.
No, there it was. I was talking away. And I'm trying not to cough. Obviously, I've been sick, so I apologize to everybody for like the way I sound. But I love what you had said earlier, was that everybody's being reactionary during divorce, right? And what I love about what you do is kind of set them, instead of being, reactive, they're proactive towards being a better parent. So I'm looking to probably like give some insight into maybe some clients or a story where they, you've helped them settle so that they can be a better employee at work. Can you give us some ideas on maybe a client that you've worked with that might have had become a better employee because they've worked with you?
Oh gosh, I have so many.
Awesome.
For some reason, I have this one case sticking out in my mind. I was working with mom, and very high conflict, 3-year divorce in Massachusetts, which is quite a long time for the way our system is here. And the interesting thing, of course, she was not able to focus at her job, and she was the breadwinner. So it was very important for her to maintain how she was doing in order to keep her 2 children fed, et cetera, in house. one of the things that was really blocking her in moving forward in her legal process was we realized together through coaching, she also had to let go of her role as being a codependent with her husband. So she had spent 30 years enabling him. He was somebody with a addiction. He had addiction in his history, covering up for him, over parenting, sort of compensating as a parent, and doing his job as well with the two children. And when she was able to sort of identify that and grieve it, because people don't realize that's a separate grief process, because I'm letting go of a huge part of my identity. She was then able to move forward and start making some really solid decisions for her legal process and finish her divorce. She kept her job. We had many discussions around, should she tell her employee? She was terrified. What if they know what I'm going through? What if they know the stress of this? Will they get rid of me? What if I can't produce the way I've been producing? So there was a lot of fear around that. And actually, when she was able to be open and honest and vulnerable with her boss, she actually got further.
Well, I'll tell you that some statistics behind that, and this is for everybody that's listening to this now in the future. The statistics are that 92% of people will never tell their employer for exactly the reasons that you've mentioned. The number one reason that they don't is because they're afraid of being fired.
Exactly.
Right? So.
But I got to tell you, once it was out in the open with her, she actually performed better, because she felt like there was sort of, again, this understanding that she maybe was not at 110%. Maybe she's a high achiever. Maybe she's at 80%. But just the emotional feeling she had that, oh, my boss hasn't gotten rid of me and understands, helped her stay focused.
Absolutely. When you feel like you have somebody that has your back, one of the other things that happens as a result of divorce is that 10% of divorcing employees quit within the first year, right? That's big. That's a very big hit on employers. The number one reason that they quit is exactly what you're talking about, because they didn't feel supported or cared for at work, right? That's the number one reason that they exit. So if you give them that support that they need, and you're giving them something to make not only their life easier, but so much better for their children, they're more likely to stay and become a much more loyal employee. And it's important that, we start to talk about this. It is in an open way as we can, because you don't have to condone divorce to support your employees going through it. You just don't. And I get why this is very uncomfortable for people to talk about. I really do. And so I'm just grateful that we have you on our team. And so talk to us about like your areas of expertise. We talked about children. I know that you also work with high conflict. What else do you tend to specialize in?
I mean, I mostly work with high conflict cases where there are children involved. I mean, that's pretty much. And I do, I perform in a variety of roles. I've been appointed by the court as a reunification therapist. I have done supervised visitation. So I'm really, although most of my clients are women, and I think the only reason for that is because women are more likely to ask for help. I also work with men. I've actually helped two men that had already signed off on custody through their legal battle and felt like they had lost everything and given up, and then came to me. We reopened a case, went back to court, and regained their custody rights. Yeah, the divorce process is not great in our country. Like, I hate to say that. It doesn't take into account a lot of the nuances of family life, and judges don't know you. They see you for 10, 15 minutes. If you actually even, get that far past pretrial and into, so, it's a lot of professionals that are making decisions for you, which is why I encourage keeping the emotions low, try to engage in mediation, because then you just have more power and control over what is going to happen.
Right, exactly. And that's one of the things that we teach people, is really how to maintain that control. And I just feel like once somebody's had, just one conversation with you, they they just go,
Right.
something
Well, I
happened
mean,
like that.
so if you think about, we have all these stories, right, in our culture around meeting somebody and falling in love and having babies and like all these great things. We don't have many cultural stories around divorce. And
Right.
so that's why it becomes this very like secretive, taboo, what's going on here. But the reality is the majority of families in the United States end up in divorce.
Right.
Right? So
Exactly.
I think even, that's why I do the groups, because I think even for people to hear that, like, oh, I'm not alone. Oh, I don't have to keep this under wraps. There isn't something wrong with me. This is just an event happening in my life. It is so helpful. There's so much support just in that.
Yeah, and when you feel like there's somebody that is along the ride with you and that you can, you know, something doesn't feel right. I'm coming up against this. How should I handle this? How should I have the conversation about children? How do I have all of these conversations and that you're there for them? And that's what's really important. That's what I love what we do. I love that we change lives and we make a really crappy process a better one.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that I've been saying is it's not divorce that destroys people.
It's
It's
not.
the way we divorce that destroys people.
Absolutely.
In
Yep.
this country, we have, this is my opinion, but we have developed this culture where people are destroyed. They lose their life savings, they lose their children, blah blah, all of that stuff, and it becomes like, it was part of the divorce. Well, how stupid is that? Like, how horrible is that? That this is just a part of the process, that you have to lose your life savings to end a relationship that's not working. It just drives me crazy.
I know.
And I'm grateful that you are on the journey with us. So, Kat, tell us about some of the things that you do up there in your neck of the woods, where you're located, and how people can get involved with some of the stuff you're doing.
Absolutely. So I'm in the Boston area. I'm in the North Shore on the ocean. And what don't I do is probably more the question.
Because you do
Um,
dating too.
I actually do dating coaching. I run a small matchmaking service for my folks post-divorce. And we do hiking trips and social events and cooking classes, because I really want people. So there's the paperwork of divorce, right? That you're legally divorced, but I also want people to be emotionally divorced. And if they do this work that with me, right, they're then going off and having healthy relationships. The other problem is people don't do their emotional work and they keep recreating the cycle of, it's second and third marriages and I keep dating abusive people. What's going on? So I really want people to have the skills to go out and have healthy relationships.
Right, exactly.
Um,
Reflection, right?
Yeah. And then I'm doing the individual coaching. I actually work with people all over the country doing that. I have some online support groups. And then sometimes
You're a wonderful resource, and we're grateful that you are a part of the Divorce Right team. Grateful to have you on here today. And I do want to remind everybody that we do have SHRM credits, and I'm going to put that link right up in the message, that the chat right now, so that you can go and make sure that you grab those, and that will be a live link on this replay. So, Kat, thank you so much for being a part of this with us today. I'm so grateful that that you have that you've joined us, that you're a part of this, and that you're making a difference in the lives of people every day. I hope my goal for these conversations with divorce coaches is that people can understand what a divorce coach actually brings to the table for their employer. And we want, if you have divorcing employees, which we all know you do, whether you know it or not, you've got about 5% of your employees that are in some way, shape, or form. Either they're thinking about it, starting it, in the middle of it, or at the end of it. That's just statistics. So we want to help them. We want to get them through this in as kind and as gentle a manner as they can, so that they can come back to work and be a fully functioning employee.
Yeah. And
so thank you.
I want to add one little thing, because divorce is a very complex grief process. Like I was saying, that my client had to let go of that identity of being a codependent and enabler, right? So that's also something that I hope people understand. This is much more complex than dealing with the death of a close loved one because there's so many different levels of grief. And it might not fit into the shoebox of what we think grief
Right.
should be or look like. So that's why I
And
think
it's,
it's so
yeah.
amazing because I am not kidding you. Just this week, I see about 20 clients a week. I will say at least half of them say, I am having a very hard time focusing, functioning at work, getting up on time. I'm worried I'm going to lose my job. That is one of the most common themes that I hear with all my clients.
Well, let's get them to talk
Yeah.
to their HR manager and get this into their companies because it's so needed. It's, I mean, I know that we think that this is like, you know, a no-brainer, but people still don't understand the value that divorce coaching can bring to the HR space. So we're grateful for you. Thank you so much, Kat. And everybody, make sure you grab your SHRM credits. And next week we have Beverly Price on. She's going to be talking about domestic violence and divorce and how to recognize it and what you can do to get your employee the support that they need through divorce coaching and case management. So we'll see you all next week. I hope you all have a wonderful time. I hope my frog in my throat is gone at that time. And I appreciate you all. Bye for now.